Have you ever done reverse applique? I never have either. So today I'm gonna film while I am learning how to do reverse applique. I've never done it before, but I gotta tell you, now that I've done it, I love it. I'm addicted to it. It was so easy and so much fun. This is what I ended up making, this cute sunburst sweatshirt. And I'm gonna take you through the tutorial step by step. We're gonna do this together. Grab some scrap fabric, grab a sweatshirt that you wanna practice on. This is just a sweatshirt from Michael's. You don't need anything fancy. Any solid sweatshirt will do. You could do it on the back of a zip up. This is just a regular old crew neck. Whatever you have, just go grab a sweatshirt, grab some fun fabric, and let's go make this together. To get started, you need to decide, what shape do you want to do? Do you want to do a sunburst like I did? Do you want to do a heart? Do you want to do something else? You could do whatever shapes you want to do. So you can grab some free clip art on the internet and trace that if you're not good at drawing, but some of these things are just so simple. I just grabbed some cardstock, drew out 2 different size sun rays. So I alternated the larger one with the smaller one. This one has a little bit of an angle to it, and then the circle for the center. I laid it out on my sweatshirt to make sure that the sizing matched up and everything was gonna look how I wanted it to look. If you're not really good at drawing, which that's okay, you don't have to be. Go online, look up clip art of whatever it is you want to do. You can find tons of free clip art out there to make your design, and we're gonna start with that and use it as a template. I thought it would be really fun to make mine kind of scrappy looking. So every sun ray that I'm doing, I have 4 different pieces of fabric that I'm sewing together. So I'm just cutting up bits of fabric here, and I'm gonna lay them out however I want the ray to be. So I'm just gonna do 4 pieces. Like I said, this is completely random. I am doing this totally off the cuff. We all know there are no rules in sewing, and with this, that especially is true. You can make these solid, you can make them scrappy, you can do this however you want to. So I'm just cutting apart fabric here and laying them together. You can see there is zero rhyme or reason. I'm not measuring anything. It does not matter what sizes these are. I just want it to look fun and just different. So I'm going to sew these pieces together. And again, they're still not the same size. Don't worry about that. Just sew them together where they meet up. And the biggest thing is that they're big enough to be able to cut out our sunbeam with this as our background. So I'm just sewing them right sides together, stitching along that edge, and then I'm going to take it to my iron. I'm going to press those seams down. When I press my seams, I like to press over to the darker side, but you can press whichever way you want. If you prefer to have your seams open, you can do that. Again, there are no rules. One other thing I'm doing is I'm adding a very thin layer to the back of this that you can't even see. I'm using Pellon P44F. That is going to stabilize the fabric just a little bit. It's very lightweight and very thin, but also it's going to cover up the seams, and so you won't have those raw edge seams on the inside of your sweatshirt. So now I'm going to take my template and I'm just going to lay it out however I want, and I'm going to start cutting out my sunbeams. Now I need 8 for this sweatshirt, and after I made it, I looked at it and I thought I probably could have done 10 if I wanted to. So you can do as many or as few as you would like to. Again, friends, there's no rules. Let's just have fun sewing up something and just making something fun for ourselves. So now I am going to repeat this process. Well, I have, what did I say? 8 or did I say 10 sunbeams? I don't remember. I already forgot. I think I have 8. So I'm making 4 of each size, 4 of the larger, 4 of the smaller. So I'm just repeating this process for a little while here in the video of me sewing pieces of fabric together to make the beams, and I'm laying them out as I go to make sure I like how they're all going together. I like the order of the colors. I decided I wanted to have some in like the pinks and oranges, but then also some in the blues and greens. This fabric that I'm using is by Ruby Star Society. I do not remember the name of it because there are so many wonderful sets by Ruby Star. This might be Carousel, but don't quote me on that. It also could be a variety of other prints mixed in here because I have a whole pile of just Ruby Star fabric, and I don't necessarily know what all of them are. So again, what we're doing here, we're just sewing our little strips together. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to. You can just cut solid pieces if that's what you prefer. So here I'm still continuing to just lay out these pieces so I can visually see what they're going to look like, what order I want my sunbeams to be in, and I'm deciding which one I want to be my next big one, which one I want to be the next small one. So I'm just getting a visual before I do any cutting or trimming. And again, you might not even be doing a sunbeam. You can do whatever shape you want to do for yours. We're going to get to the sewing into the sweatshirt process in just a little bit. For the center of the sunshine, I did the same thing. I took a piece of fabric and then I did another strip along the top and the bottom just to make it still scrappy and so it coordinates and matches with everything else that I've done with the sunbeams. So I'm just going to position this where I want it, use the template to cut around the edge. You can either just use your rotary cutter carefully around this circle, or you could trace it with a fabric marking pen of some sort, and you could cut it out with, again, your rotary cutter or a scissors, whatever is easiest for you. Just take your time when cutting the circle. I'd hate to have somebody slip and cut a finger, which I've done. It hurts. So be careful with your rotary cutter, especially when cutting around curves like this. Before we get to the sewing, I'm going to lay this out one more time just to make sure I'm really happy with how everything looks, because once we sew it into the sweatshirt and we do our cutting, there's no going back. So I just want to make sure I really like how it lays out, that everything looks the way I want it to before I add it. I think we're ready to commit. Okay, take your sweatshirt and then you're going to turn it right side out. Okay, so I've already turned mine right side out. So we're working on the inside of the sweatshirt here. I've got the front facing up. Make sure you've got it on the right side of the sweatshirt. Now, I thought I would use a glue pen, but then I realized I didn't want the sticky glue on the other side, so I decided against it. So just ignore that glue pen you see floating around. I'm not actually using it. Now, I'm doing a little measuring so that I get this centered in the middle of the sweatshirt where I want it to be. So first I'm marking the center so that I know where to place the sun, the middle of the sun, right? So I'm going to, again, place everything where I want it before I do any sewing or cutting. And I'm just starting in the middle as a starting point. I'm going to adjust this as I go. I don't want it right up along the neck. So I'm just being extra careful here about where I put everything, making sure it looks right. Now, I am putting the sunbeams and everything right side up just to get a visual, but we're going to flip these over once we're happy with the placement and we like how it looks, because this is exactly what it's going to look like on the other side. So we just want to make sure we love it, we're happy with everything before we start the stitching process. All right, I'm happy with this. So now we're going to just carefully flip everything over and just put it exactly where it was to begin with. So I'm going to start with the center and I'm going to pin it. So this gets a little bit cumbersome trying to pin because you don't want to pin through both layers. You only want to pin through the front layer. So you might have to put your hand on the underside of the sweatshirt just to make sure you're just pinning through the first layer. So I'm going to do that with all of the sunbeams all the way around. So I'm going to flip everything over. The right sides of all of your pieces should be on the inside of your sweatshirt. Okay, so go ahead, get everything pinned. Make sure you're super happy with the placement. If you need to add extra pins or tack things down, because you're going to be doing a lot of shifting and moving as you sew. Because we are sewing something that is already assembled, this would be easier if we were making an entirely new sweatshirt, but we're just improvising a really plain sweatshirt and making it really cute. So just make sure everything is secure. You've used a few pins in each piece just to make sure it holds and it stays in place while we do our sewing. Okay, so you're going to put this under the needle, but what you need to do is make sure you get the other side of the sweatshirt out from under the needle. You don't want to sew through both layers. So you just have to kind of pull and twist and just constantly be aware of what is under that needle. So I am always just using my hands to feel underneath and to move things around as I need to as I sew. So stitch slowly. You're going to first stitch around the outside of the center. So we're stitching around the center of the sun. Now keep in mind, whatever color bobbin thread you're using right now is going to be visible. So if you want it to match your sweatshirt, you could have used, like I could have used a white. I thought it would be fun to have a contrasting stitch color. So my bobbin thread is actually pink and my top thread is white. So that is, again, personal preference because there are no rules here in sewing. We just do whatever brings us joy. So you can see I am shifting and moving. I'm sewing really slowly because I don't want to catch anything that shouldn't be stitched in place in here. So just use your hands to move the layers as you go. And first, stitch around that circle. Make sure you remove the pins as you get to them. I like to get right up next to that pin before I pull it out, just so it's all stays in place and where I want it. Okay, next we're gonna sew all the sunbeams in place. So we're just gonna start with one. We're going to go up one side, across the top edge, and down the other side. So one thing I didn't mention is I am using about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here. So I'm using my 1/4 of an inch presser
you just
foot,
leave your needle in the
and I'm
down
just
position,
stitching right along
pivot,
the
and then
very
keep
edge.
stitching down the
so
other
that
side.
way,
Again,
when
double
we
checking
cut
that
apart
nothing
the sweatshirt
that
on the other
shouldn't
side,
be is under your needle
fabric
right
will
now,
be
just so you
stitched
don't
down
sew
1/4 of an
anything.
inch
Once
on the
you
inside.
get the
so
hang
you'll
of
have
that,
plenty
it's
of
actually,
room
it's
there.
not that hard. You just have to constantly be shifting and moving things just to make sure that it's all laying nice and flat the way you intend. And I'm just working on one little section at a time here. I'm not worrying about the rest of it getting wrinkled or bulky or anything like that. It really doesn't matter. You just work on the one section you're focused on, smooth that out, sew it, and then move on to the next one until all of your sunbeams or whatever shape you're doing is all stitched in place. All right, we're done stitching. So now we get to see this come to life. So next, you're gonna turn this right side out. So go ahead, grab the sleeves, pull everything out the way it should be, and we're gonna look at the front side, and all you're gonna see is the stitches. And now we're gonna use our scissors to cut away that sweatshirt material. And because it is sweatshirt material, it's not going to fray and come apart on you. So you can see all of your stitching. We can kind of see the pattern through that white fabric. And now I'm going to use the smaller scissors and I'm going to carefully pull apart the sweatshirt from the fabric so that we just snip into the fabric of the sweatshirt. You don't want to snip into the fabric you just sewed in place. Okay, so carefully cut a hole in the center. It doesn't matter where. And then you're going to cut away the sweatshirt material about 1/4 of an inch away from that line that you just sewed to sew all the fabric on the other side. You don't want to cut right up to the stitching. Leave yourself that 1/4 of an inch. You're going to want that. And I found once I washed this, it kind of got little wrinkly and crinkly, and it was super cute. So, but it's not going to like fray and be super stringy, which is really nice when you're using a sweatshirt like this because it's a nice knit material. So we are going to continue this process for all of the sunbeams and then the circle. And I like to cut the little slits in all the pieces and then just use my bigger scissors to cut the fabric away. There is a special scissors you can get for this. I don't even remember the name of it. I didn't feel the need to have anything different than my regular scissors. So don't feel like you have to get something fancy or different scissors to do this, because regular scissors work just fine. I am using 2 pair because I found that my small scissors that has a sharper point at the tip was better for cutting the little hole in the middle. And then the bigger scissors worked better for me to cut away that excess sweatshirt material that we're cutting completely off of the sweatshirt. Okay, so now just give it a once over, take a look, make sure you don't need to like trim things up. I had to go back and cut a little bit more off where I had kind of a jagged edge. I'm clipping any loose threads that might be showing from when we stitched everything into place. Make sure you trim all those off. Also trim off any loose threads on the inside. And then it's ready to throw in the wash. And I was so happy with how mine came out after I washed it. I just love how this looks. You guys, the possibilities are absolutely endless. I hope you have so much fun making a ton of sweatshirts.
Okay, how cute is this? I just absolutely love how it turned out. It was even easier than I thought it would be. This was really fun to make, and the possibilities of what you could do are absolutely endless. And you don't need you don't need any specific tools or supplies. I mean, this was just fabric scraps and an old sweatshirt that I happened to grab. So you don't need anything fancy. You don't need a special scissors. So I can't wait to see what you guys make. So be sure to tag me on Instagram over at the Little Green Bean, because I would love to see it. And if you're not already following along and subscribe to this channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the fun tutorials we have coming up.